and makes editing a nightmare. No, I'm just kidding.
People need to know about salsa and cereal.
Okay,
We can keep it in.
Maybe that'll be the name of the episode.
Salsa.
But
You'd get clicks.
But really, and why does this even matter? Well, because if I look and say, what would a healthy person do? I would look at that and say they probably wouldn't eat the Cheerios or the Frosted Flakes or the salsa at that time of night, especially because I'm not hungry. I'm doing it just out of anxiety or stress or, labeling whatever that is that's keeping me up versus saying, look, it's time for bed. I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
And I'm pointing out what's wrong. And then I step back and say, okay, the 1% rule. How am I going to get 1% better at this? Okay, first off, I think having a habit scorecard would help me in that 1%. And then I can start working on some of these other tricks.
Have you ever felt awkward when trying to start a conversation? Do you ever find yourself feeling overwhelmed? Or perhaps you wish you could keep track of your money better? Do adulting skills give you grief? What if you had one place to go to learn about all these skills and more?
Welcome to Adulting Decrypted. We prepare young adults to be independent powerhouses for life. An independent powerhouse is someone who possesses the ability to be socially, emotionally, practically, and financially independent.
Let's take a quick second for us to introduce ourselves.
I'm Ashton. When I first moved out, I wanted nothing more than independence. There were a lot of things that I didn't know, and I needed help from my parents in basically all facets of my life. I went on a 2-year service mission, and when I came home, I was determined to do better than I did before. I'm now living on my own, paying for my own place, and learning a ton of lessons that I am happy to learn, even though they may be difficult. I'm excited to share what I'm learning. I'm also excited to learn with you.
I'm Gideon, and while seeing the world and people around me, I've always wanted to stand out and be more prepared than my peers, lacking the skill to know where to look and to find guidance, other than my older and wiser family. Now with this podcast, I can learn how to progress and share this knowledge with others.
I'm Roscoe, the dad. Michelle and I thought we had taught the children everything they needed to know to become adults. Then one day at dinner, we were having a conversation about an Ivy League school had just started Adulting 101, and they were teaching such basic skills, and I was laughing. That's when Ashton jumped in, Gene and Gideon, and all told us about the gaps in our training. That is why we decided to launch Adulting Decrypted.
Normally, there are 4 hosts for the show. Gene, the 4th host, is currently on a 2-year service mission.
I'm Gene, and I'm actually recording this on my phone because I'm out in Louisiana and Mississippi. I won't be able to join the discussion today. I will be back, I promise.
While we won't be able to hear his live comments, we're looking forward to sharing his thoughts and his stories regularly on the show.
And now, on with the episode.
We're starting the new school year. For a lot of people, it's going to be in college. They've got the new school year coming up. Gideon, what year are you starting this year?
I'm going to be my last year of my master's. Kidding. Senior.
Cool.
Impressive.
Cool.
Yeah, you got me beat.
Ashton, what school year are you starting?
I'm going back to my freshman year of high school.
That's what it's going to feel like a little bit, right?
Yep.
So I thought it would be pretty appropriate to talk. This episode is, the goal is to drop this right about the start of school. School starts in Utah on April 15th this year, which is
August.
Oh yeah, it started with an A. I was close.
Yeah.
So August 15th, and when you start a new school year, sometimes you want to come out strong. You want to do your best. You might sit down. It's kind of like a new year for a lot of adults. A lot of adults look at January as the time to shine and to do something new. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Have you caught yourself wanting to start something new but not quite sure how to do it?
All the time.
Yes, it's often occurs.
Fair enough. So Gideon and I were having this conversation earlier about the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. This isn't going to be a book review. It probably should be. There's plenty of information on atomic habits, and he talks about a variety of strategies and concepts of building and sustaining positive habits. We're kind of just going to grab 3 of them. I think he's got 11 in there, but we're going to just grab 3 of them that we thought were important to kind of highlight, to focus on, to spend a little bit of time on. just starting those off, the 3 that we're going to cover for y'all, just so you know, the 1% rule, habit stacking, and habit scorecard. We'll see where the tangents go, I guess, maybe a little bit, but the 1% rule. Gideon, do you want to give us a quick rundown on that conversation we're having?
Sure. And it might be easier to tell a story along with it.
Love it.
So, the British cycling team, I'm sure some of you guys have heard this. The British cycling team was doing very, very, very poorly. And I'm not sure the time period on it, but they were not doing very good. And then they got a new manager, and his whole point of view was to change 1% better every single day. And so, he'd do some of the typical things like change the bike seat, switch clothes, stuff like that. And then slowly he got to the more strange things that people might not have expected, like painting the inside of their travel van white so they could see all the dust, and just smaller things like that. And it ended up compounding relatively quickly. So in 5 years, the British cycling team was winning a lot of events. They won, I think it was 60% of the gold medals available. And so they did very well, and it was very impactful for them. And the whole philosophy was, if you even do small things, 1% changes that they'll compound.
Yeah, I like it. I think that's a good, I like that you shared it with the story and kind of gave us a grasp there.
So I have to ask, you said they painted their inside of their van white so they could see the dust. What does that mean?
Because, they don't want their riders to get sick. And so the dust was to make sure they didn't get sick. And then a lot of their very high quality bike components could not get dust in them, or else they wouldn't work properly.
Fair enough.
So the white was just to see the dirt around them.
Make it really easy to see everything.
Yeah.
And I think also, right, as they paint it white, you can start to see where the dust is coming in at and fix those problems, right? That would be the next 1% improvement.
Yeah, there's lots.
So 1% doesn't seem like a lot.
Nope. Well, it's interesting, this whole idea, because Utah, the football team, went through a couple tragedies last year, 2 years ago, both with players that wore the number 22. And so it became a thing to say they were going to be 22% better every day, something one of the players said that passed. And so every game and in a bunch of the merch and promo stuff, it's all 22% better every day. But I was thinking about it, it's like 1%. To get to 100%, it only takes 100 days.
Yeah, 22% is a lot.
It's a lot of percent.
You know, the hard part becomes is, so if you have this big goal, right? So going into the new school year, what might be a big goal? Ashton, think of what your students might have, or Gideon, what do you have? What would be that big goal? How would you look at getting 1% better every day? I mean, is there something? Yeah, either one of you.
So, I'd say for a typical high school student, a big goal would be to have good grades for scholarships, especially senior year. So, your goal could be, all A's. And then 1% changes you could do, just for an example, would be to go to sleep on time.
Oh, wow.
Or to, start your homework as soon as you can, like the day you get it, even if it's not due for a couple weeks. Just set little reminders to do that. Or
I like that. I like both of those. I like that you said the big goal is to get A's, and then you look at all the different things that play into that, and you're like, maybe I don't get enough sleep. Maybe I'm falling asleep in class. Maybe I'm not organized. So you're going, okay, how do I get 1% better? Oh, I'm going to take a notebook today, or I'm going to write down something, whatever. So I think if we're really focused on that daily, it helps. When a habit gets closer to that 100%, right? So let's say you're right in that A range. I think the harder part is to go from an A- to an A, because you're already up there. Those are the ones that you still need to keep evaluating if that's still an important goal. And those changes are almost harder to make because you're so used to it, or they're harder to see. You might be more involved in it. So I like that. Cool. Any other thoughts on the 1%ers?
Hello. If you're listening to this right now, that means you're currently listening to an episode of Adulting Decrypted. And let me just say thank you. My name's Ashton, one of the hosts of Adulting Decrypted, and I wanted to steal a quick second of your time to do a shameless little plug. If you've listened to our podcast for any sort of time, you know that we talk about a bunch of different stuff all about adulting. Because our goal is to help individuals in this task we call adulting. Now, we have just revamped the way that we do this. If you go to adultingdecrypted.com, you can see all of our episodes sorted out by category. We've sorted it into financial, practical, emotional, social, and things just for fun. So, if any of those categories are of particular interest to you right now, you can go onto the website, look through there, and see all of our episodes that correlate with that specific thing. This website's completely free to use. It's just another tool for our listeners to find things that are more important to them now. So, for example, if I was looking at it, I'd scroll through and say, hey, you know what? I want to see what the Adulting Encrypted crew has talked about socially. Well, one of our first episodes, season 1, episode 3, how do I talk to people? That's where we talked about all about how to talk to people. So if that's something you want right now, you can go find that right now. Also in this one, season 3, episode 15, the power of a humble mediator, where we talked to one of my old bosses about his business as a mayor, also as a small theater owner. Some really cool stuff. So, if you're looking for a better way to organize through all your self-help podcasts, try adultingdecrypted.com and enjoy the rest of the episode.
I'm not sure. I mean, you could always look at other goals too and find examples, but
I think one thing I wanted to talk about while we were on this is something you and I were talking about, and it's almost what I titled the episode, and then I realized we're going to change it a little bit. But what would an A student do on that example? What would you know if you're trying to mirror a college football player, you want to be a college football player, you almost have to say, well, what does Cam Rising do? Right? And then you've got to start putting those habits in place. Right? So as you're thinking of this, as you said A's, you might first initially step back and go, I can't think of anything. So you might need to go look at what does an A student do.
yeah.
And that's probably true with the next ones that we're talking about too, but I think the first thing is to start identifying where those gaps would be. I think the British cycling team, because they were losing so bad, to your point, getting like some of the stuff was just easy. The coach was able to come in and say, we need different bicycle seats. We need to train harder.
Yeah, I was just going to say they're losing so bad, even like a couple big brands would stop selling their bikes to the British cycling team because it would worsen their sales.
and that's probably fair with some people going to school, having such a hard time getting up in the morning. And I love that you said go to bed earlier was one of your first things, but sometimes in order to figure out your habit, you need to look at what successful people are doing that are reaching to those goals. The other one we were going to talk about is habit stacking. And any thoughts on that? I've got one that I love that I did. But any thoughts on habit stacking?
Are you going to explain what it is? Or?
Oh, maybe you should do that. That's a good idea.
Okay. I know sometimes I fumble my words, but I literally listened to these chapters this morning as I was mowing lawns. But habit stacking is taking a habit that you already have. Say your morning routine is get up, turn my alarm off, make my bed, take a shower. And let's say, this is actually an example straight from the book, but let's say that you want to read every night. His thing is, get up, turn your alarm off, make your bed, put a book on your pillow, take a shower. So you're stacking your habits together. So then your brain automatically knows, oh, as soon as I make my bed, part of making my bed is putting that book on my pillow. So then when you go to sleep at night, you're going into your bed, you're like, oh, there's already a book here for me to like enjoy. So the whole basis is stacking habits on top of each other, and then adding little ones that you'd like to introduce into your daily routine.
That's a great example. One that I did for me was I knew I wanted to floss my teeth. And it goes back to when I was at the dentist one time. He had to do a root canal. You guys know what a root canal is? Have you ever had one of those done?
Nope, haven't had one of those done, but I know I've heard of them. They suck.
Yeah, so they drill through your tooth, and they actually grab the root that goes into the bone jaw of your mouth. Then they pull it out, and they do that because you've got a cavity or some type of infection. And he starts doing this, and he goes, "Oh, this is interesting. I can do this one. I don't need to send you anywhere. You have an average-sized root." And I started thinking, I'm like, average? That sucks.
I don't want to be average.
Yeah, I don't want to be average. I looked at it, I'm like, I have an average house. I have average number of kids. I have average, what can I be above average on? The one thing I realized is if I floss my teeth, I asked the dentist, I said, hey, if I started flossing my teeth every day, where would I be at? He goes, man, you'd be in the top 1%. He goes, you know what? Of our male clients, he goes, you'd be in the top 5%. He goes, in our male clients, you'd probably be in the top 1% of people if you started flossing your teeth every day. So I went home and I thought, okay, I'm going to floss my teeth every day. And I went home and I flossed them and I went to bed. And next day I got up and I did my thing and laid down to bed and was laying down at night and thought, how did I do today? And I said, oh, great. Went to sleep, woke up the next day and went, oh, I was going to floss my teeth every day. Like I totally spaced it, right? I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
I didn't have a reason to think about it. It never came across my mind. Like, okay, so one of the problems I have is I'm not doing it every day. How do I do it every day? What can I stack it with? What can I put it with? Well, one thing I do every day is I shower. Right, I'm pretty consistent to shower. I'm a daily showerer.
It's a habit.
Yeah, normally in the morning, right? I get up, I get going. One of the things I do is I take my shower, and I'm like, oh, if I anchored this to me brushing my teeth to my shower,
flossing.
Yeah, that's right.
Both,
Because I've already anchored. So I've already. Whenever I shower, I brush my teeth right after. It's just what I do. Like if I anchored that right there in that movement and it became part of it, I think I can start doing this. So I had no visual cues, but I did know after I brushed my teeth, I was going to floss. And then somebody told me, well, maybe you should floss before you brush your teeth. And it doesn't matter to me. So I've actually changed it to where I floss and then brush. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I just changed it later, but
I have never heard flossing before brushing before.
But anyway, so I'd floss and I'd go, good job. And then I'd go on my day, right? So I gave myself a reward. You're awesome. Way to brush your teeth. Well, yesterday I caught myself. I showered once in the morning and then went out and had to fix a car. And so and it was so hot and I just was hot and dirty. So I got up, I did my morning ritual. I brushed my teeth, flossed, because now it's so anchored in there. I just do it. Well, I take a shower at night. Getting out of the shower, I flossed and brushed my teeth because it's so tied to that shower that I did it without even thinking about it, which I would consider to be a pretty powerful habit and a habit stacker. On that one, I think it still goes back to what would you want to do? What do you want to improve upon? And then how do you stack it? Have you stacked anything, Gideon, successfully that you've worked on? Or
honestly, I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
Fair.
Unconsciously, sure. Like probably bad habits.
Sure. I think that's an easy one, right? Is I catch myself at night, and probably not a habit stacker, but when I get ready to go to bed, I want a bowl of cold cereal. And then if I have cold cereal, then I need something salty. So cold cereal and salsa right before I go to bed is probably pretty healthy for me.
Perfect.
No, but that's not really a habit.
Do the cold cereal and the salsa get eaten together?
Well, it's not within 5 minutes.
No.
But no, I think a habit.
Salsa's just the milk.
Oh, man.
I think a true habit stacker for me that's probably not a good habit is a morning caffeinated drink. I'm like, oh, I need this caffeine, and it's just tied to getting up and getting ready for the day.
Yeah, so. And I think that almost perfectly ties in with the scorecard too.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, so the next one we want to talk about was habit scorecard. Gideon, did you want to run us through that real quick?
Sure. So the whole point of the habit scorecard, and you can find your own habit scorecard on the Atomic Habits website, just so we don't we got to give James Clear's credit because it's a great book and you should all listen to it. And you can find a template of the habit scorecard on there. And the habit scorecard is where you write down your daily habits, and then next to your daily habit, you write if it is a net positive, a net equal, or a net negative to where you want to go. For an example, let's use a morning routine again, just because it's easy. Let's say you wake up, turn off your alarm, check your phone, make your bed, shower, have a cup of coffee, have some cereal, something like that. So then you'd write down next to your habits whether they're adding to your life, it's equal, or if it's like a bad habit, then you'd write a minus. So waking up, equal, turn off your alarm, equal, checking your phone, it's probably net minus, probably shouldn't be doing that. Making your bed, positive, shower, positive. So you go through and you can consciously see what you're doing to either help or hurt where you want to go. And he said that sometimes that might not be enough. And before you do anything, you say to yourself out loud, I am performing this task. Like, I'm about to check my phone in the morning and it is not helping me. And he's just like, you got to be consciously aware of what you're doing to know if you're doing the right thing.
I was curious, so I Googled it. And it's pretty interesting. You know, he talks about here, James Clear, I'm assuming it's he. He talks about the habit scorecard, and he talks about, actually, first thing I noticed is flossing his teeth came after brushing on his scorecard.
Oh, there you
Just
go.
for the audience.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, it definitely comes before putting on sunscreen. Because I've also locked in that habit, and I've done it backwards, and it is nasty. Get a little bit of
brush your teeth with sunscreen? Or
No. When you put sunscreen on your face, and then you grab the floss to start flossing.
Yeah, that'll do it. The
Pretty
mint and
nasty.
SPF don't go together well.
Not at all.
He talks about how habits are not good or bad, but effective or non-effective. Or, yeah, there's only effective habits, and then there's some that don't qualify. The only other thing that he talks about here that I think is actually pretty interesting is he brings up the Japanese railway system, and I'm sure he talks about this in the book, and hopefully he didn't just mention it as I was reading it, but he talks about how the operators on the railway system will point and call out things. So like he says, this is directly from his website, a page called The Habit Scorecard. Use this simple exercise to discover which habits you should change. He says, as each operator runs the train, they proceed through a ritual of pointing at different objects and calling out commands. When the train approaches a signal, the operator will point at it and say, signal is green. As the train pulls into and out of each station, the operator will point at the speedometer and call out the exact speed. Every detail is identified, pointed at, and named aloud. I think that's pretty interesting. Like, if we pointed out and named aloud our habits in the morning, kind of like the habit scorecard, but a little bit more, less writey-downy, but more point-outy. If I pointed at my phone in the morning and said, I'm going to check it now, I probably wouldn't, because I'd then have the presence of mind to not to. Unless I needed to. I mean, unless I wanted to. But I don't know. I think pointing out, it's pretty interesting.
Well, and the premise behind that is that you're aware of the behavior. And that you're just bringing it up and saying, I'm about to eat chips and salsa. And then you can say, wait, is that really going to be the best thing to do right now before I go to bed? Right? So I like that is the calling it out and pointing it out. Thanks for that example. That's great.
No worries. I have never thought of salsa and cereal going together. That's super interesting. I'm going to have to try that now.
So gross.
Well, it's just the sweet and the salty.
Well, they're not together.
Oh, okay. I was like, salsa for milk with your Cheerios is not the way to go.
Well, that's because you're eating Cheerios.
Well,
Cheerios aren't as good.
do you imagine Captain Crunch with salsa?
Yeah.
Stop.
It might be nice.
Stop.
Fruit Loops, I think, would be better.
No.
Because then it would be more like
No.
the mango salsa stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking
It's
about.
so different.
No, like the
though.
super sweet salsa. You don't know what I'm talking
Okay,
about?
I do know
I
what
know
you're
what
talking
you're
about, but
talking
I
about.
don't know why you'd mix that with cereal. So
Well, you brought it
I'm,
up.
I'm gonna stop us there before we get too far down that rabbit hole, which we tend to do, and makes editing a nightmare. No, I'm just kidding.
People need to know about salsa and cereal.
Okay,
We can keep it in.
Maybe that'll be the name of the episode.
Salsa.
But
You'd get clicks.
But really, and why does this even matter? Well, because if I look and say what would a healthy person do, I would look at that and say they probably wouldn't eat the Cheerios or the Frosted Flakes or the salsa at that time of night, especially because I'm not hungry. I'm doing it just out of anxiety or stress or, labeling whatever that is that's keeping me up versus saying, look, it's time for bed. I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
And I'm pointing out what's wrong, and then I step back and say, okay, the 1% rule. How am I going to get 1% better at this? Okay, first off, I think having a habit scorecard would help me in that 1%. And then I can start working on some of these other tricks. How would I habit stacking? If I knew I was going to go up and read a book, hey, that'd be great. I'm going upstairs. I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm going to go read my book, and I'm going to go to bed.
Another interesting thought there is it makes the 1% easier to identify. Like if you've got a habit scorecard of 100 things on it, you just got to change one of them. I was going to say 10, you only have to change one, but that's 10%. That might be a little ambitious.
Yeah, but that's a really good point. And I think part of that is just identifying the different steps.
Yeah.
I like
That was the whole point, is to identify and know what you're doing. Then you feel in control.
I think it'd be fair to challenge us and the listener on this one as we get ready for this new school year and we're getting back into different rhythm and activities. We take the time and step back and say, what do I really want to achieve? And then what would the professional, the great example of that, how would they do it? Or what would they do? And then put the 1% rule in place, work on habit stacking, and get a habit scorecard so that we can really improve and have the best school year possible. Or the best teaching year. The best.
The school year.
Work year, everything.
Work year. Yeah.
Mhm.
Or yeah,
Maybe even just the best self.
the best self, and really just a chance to start over. Take it as a chance to, instead of just looking at it in January and writing down a whole list of things, go ahead and start on August 15th. Go ahead and start September 1st. But just start.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Adult and Decrypted. We really enjoyed having this week's conversation, and we hope you did as well.
If you ever want to comment on the topics, you can send us a message to our website, adultingdecrypted.com, our email, adultingdecrypted@gmail.com, or through our Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts at adultingdecrypted.
If you have any topics for the show that you would like us to talk about, or if you are a parent and want us to talk about something your kids should know, send us a message on any of the accounts mentioned. If you'd like to be a guest or have an idea for someone you think we should have on our show, feel free to send us an email detailing your thoughts to adultingdecrypted@gmail.com. Adulting is teamwork.
We have merch. If you want to show off your Adulting Decrypted pride, check out our website, adultingdecrypted.com, or our partner website with shop.spreadshirt.com/adulting-decrypted.
Lastly, if you enjoyed the show, please consider supporting us on our Patreon at Adulting Decrypted. Along with the benefits that come with our Patreon, and trust us, there are some pretty good ones in there, you will not only be helping us continue in the effort to make great content, but you will be part of a community of individuals all trying their best to adult.
We appreciate you listening, enjoying, and leaving your positive reviews. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Adult and Decrypted. We really enjoyed having this week's conversation, and we hope you did as well.
If you ever want to comment on the topics, you can send us a message to our website, adultingdecrypted.com, our email, adultingdecrypted@gmail.com, or through our Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts at adultingdecrypted.
If you have any topics for the show that you would like us to talk about, or if you are a parent and want us to talk about something your kids should know, send us a message on any of the accounts mentioned. If you'd like to be a guest or have an idea for someone you think we should have on our show, feel free to send us an email detailing your thoughts to adultingdecrypted@gmail.com. Adulting is teamwork.
We have merch. If you want to show off your Adulting Decrypted pride, check out our website, adultingdecrypted.com, or our partner website with shop.spreadshirt.com/adulting-decrypted.
Lastly, if you enjoyed the show, please consider supporting us on our Patreon at Adulting Decrypted. Along with the benefits that come with our Patreon, and trust us, there are some pretty good ones in there, you will not only be helping us continue in the effort to make great content, but you will be part of a community of individuals all trying their best to adult.
We appreciate you listening, enjoying, and leaving your positive reviews. Now, the special song from Gene and Gideon.